of Bill number 349-30 is hereby back in session. We broke yesterday on section 7, page 198, and we're still finalizing the amendment that was requested for section 7. In the meantime, we also skipped section Chapter 8 for the Mayor's Council of Guam in deference to the chairman of the committee who wanted to work out some additional concerns. We've done that this morning, and we'll go ahead and go back then to the Mayor's Council, Chapter 8, in which the committee, and we'll recognize Senator Tina Muñoz-Barnes.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, Mananay Sidzuas, thank you for giving me the opportunity and coming back to the Mayor's Council section here on Chapter 8, right? 8. I do have three proposed amendments, Mr. Speaker, and if you can follow with me. Again, you know, knowing that the Mayor's continue to be the 24/7 responders to all the residents in their villages, in their village, I think it was important, and I want to extend my thank you to you and to your OFB committee for working closely with me and trying to make sure that the mayors have the necessary funding resources so that they can move on with their operations and with their projects within their villages. And with that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and go straight. I do know that the amendments were passed out. Do you have it? There's three. I have three amendments. Hold on a second. I guess. We're back to ready?
Proceed, Senator Barnes.
Okay. The amendment will be on Chapter 8, Section 1 is amended to read, and then on the miscellaneous category, Object Class 290 from 25,268. That new number would be 788,304. And then Section 8 is added to Chapter 8. Section 8 will read Public Safety and Social Education Programs. The sum of $447,375 is appropriated from the General Fund to the Mayor's Council of Guam, with each village to receive the $15,000 and with the remaining funds to the Mayor's Council of Guam for fiscal year 2011 to be expended in accordance with the plans approved by the Mayor's Council of Guam or respective village municipal planning council and filed with the Director of Administration to fund public safety and social education programs that enforce alcohol regulations, reduce underage drinking, support traffic safety, reduce drug-related violence and abuse, to support Government of Guam substance abuse prevention programs, and to support organized sports programs in the community.
All right.
And then with that being said, I have two more after that so that we can
right.
correct it accordingly.
Thank you very much. This would increase the available funding for these two object categories in the Mayor's Council programs, and would bring them pretty much in line with what would be available to them from this year's operations. So
Yes.
it really just brings them back up to their current expenditure requirements. Any additional discussion on Senator Agun?
This is Mr. Speaker. Ay ko nanaw nga kebli ki Jennifer?
It's the other two that would fund.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, ano fafasit sa
Unggan.
ano atan sti kalan $447,000 po ma
Okay.
Zizi Maslow. Sige ba sangen po di todo mayor ki islata. Sa tatungo no Megan Bidaninya giuzong. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, I did have an opportunity to speak to a mayor just last evening. And we know and understand exactly what the challenges are out there in the community. And in this case, being able to identify an additional $500,000 that's going to go towards the mayors for this particular program that they've been administering over the course of the past several years, I think is very notable. And I thank the chair for recognizing and working towards identifying the resources, because in this case, when we say it's all about children, I think that this appropriation applies directly towards that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any objections?
No objection.
No objections. The amendment carries. Senator Barnes, you're recognized.
Okay,
Oh, I'm
then,
sorry.
and then I would need to change a couple
Yes.
accordingly, okay?
Right.
So, on Chapter 2, Education Part 1, Section 14 is added to Chapter 2, and it would read, Section 14, reappropriation of unexpended and unencumbered appropriations to the Department of Education, the sum of $1,210,411 of the unexpended and unencumbered appropriations remaining as of August 1st, 2010, from the appropriations contained in Section 4 of Public Law 30-37 is hereby reappropriated to the Department of Education to object Category 230 in the base operations appropriations in Chapter 2, Part 1 of Section 1.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry,
Can you
Senator
finish?
Barnes, you know, this is a remaining balance of an appropriation
Did
that
you
we
want-
wanted to make sure goes back to DOE.
That's
So
right.
we'll defer on this until we get to the DOE section? Okay? I'm sorry.
That's
Because we
okay.
did defer discussion on the DOE section.
That's right. Okay.
But it's
so
putting
then
money back into DOE, not taking it back. So we'll defer on
I'll
this
go ahead
until we
and,
get.
okay.
The other one then?
Then I'll withdraw it for now until, or,
Yes. The next one would be,
I know, but I would
yes.
because I read it,
That's correct.
just move, I guess, to withdraw it and defer it then till,
Okay.
till that
All right.
that section comes up.
On Senator Barnes to withdraw that amendment
objection.
at this time, no objections? Okay.
And then the last one would be on Chapter 5, the Executive Branch Appropriations. Chapter V and subsection 4 is amended to read, reappropriation of unexpended and unencumbered appropriations.
I'm
to the
sorry,
Department
Mr.
of-
Speaker and good Senator, but if you can just highlight the page. We have the amendments before us, but just the page so that we can properly link the two.
Okay.
Now we go back to Chapter 5. I'm looking at it, one.
Hold on, we'll find it. Page 113, I'm sorry. Page 113. 113. Yeah, under the executives, so page 113. Okay? No?
Isn't this the one we're going over?
Yeah.
Section Department of Corrections.
One, 113. Yes, we're putting the number in there. There was no, yeah. Yeah. Where the unexpended, unencumbered appropriation in that section is over 4 million, and we wanted to cap what is going to the Department of Corrections to 3.2, because that's all they need. So that's, we're referencing the number.
So it would be 113.
Yes. Page 113.
It's still under the executive branch?
Yeah, it's still under executive direction, because
Yeah.
DOC is under executive.
Under executive branch
Right.
appropriations,
Okay.
yes.
All right,
Not under the governor's office, but it would be.
continue.
So the Department of, for reappropriation of unexpended and unencumbered appropriations to the Department of Corrections, the sum of $3,283,589 of the unexpended and unencumbered appropriations remaining as of August 1st, 2010 from the appropriations contained in Section 4 of Public Law 30-37 is hereby reappropriated to the Department of Corrections for the payment of prior and current year obligations for prisoners confined in federal facilities in the Federal Bureau of Prisons. This reappropriation shall not be subject to the transfer authority of Imagalai.
Right. And the reason why
Thank
we're
you.
doing this is this helps fund that mayor's gap, mayor's council gap. So there was over 4 million in that appropriation, and we're capping the DOC portion to what they requested for the past due obligations of 3.2. So it meets DOE's requirement, and it frees up additional money for the mayors. So, any objections? No objections, the amendment carries. We'll go ahead and, do we have Senator Palacios?
Mr. Chair, I just want to
Yeah.
thank you.
Oh, thank you very much,
I just
Senator
want to
Barnes.
thank you for the hard work and realizing that, again, you know, the mayors really need this resource, and I want to thank the OFB committee for taking the time to work closely with us. Thank you, Sidros Masi.
Thank you very much. Before we go into the Chapter 12 miscellaneous provisions, I also wanted to give Senator Palacios an opportunity to make an amendment. We had said that he would come back to the Attorney General's office to consider an amendment in there. And so,
Printing and copying.
yeah, we're printing and copying the amendment for Senator Palacios. Oh, okay. Is that the one? I think we have this one. Okay.
Can I see
They were going to stay except the no funds shall be transferred for salary.
Oh, okay, he has it.
It's already ready?
That's
It doesn't limit the funds.
the last sentence here. But nothing to personnel.
Make transfer funds.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Okay then, so
Okay.
I'll do that.
yeah. We're just copying Senator Palacios' amendment, so we'll be in a short recess.
So after this, then, we're gonna go to
Miscellaneous. Senator Palacios on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer an amendment to Section 10. This is on page 172 of the budget document. And the amendment is to replace Section 10 with this. And the amendment essentially is that the current Section 10 allows for transfer authority only into travel, which is now showing 0, of course, on page 173. But my amendment is to allow transfer authority as is the current budget law provides, except that no funds shall be transferred for regular salaries and benefits. And that is the restriction of the transfer authority of the AG. And if this amendment would replace Section 10, that would correct that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So on the amendment by Senator Palacios, it basically allows the Attorney General, as you mentioned, transfer authority between object class except personnel. Any one wish to speak on the amendment? If not, the amendment carries. That then concludes that
Thank you, Mr.
amendment.
Chairman.
We will now then proceed with the miscellaneous.
Are we gonna go through the mayor's section, or just, we didn't actually go through them?
So we are now on Chapter 12, miscellaneous.
Senator Griffiths.
Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Guthers. Was that the miscellaneous appropriation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noted, yesterday I went through last night I went through the budget document again, and I noted we overlooked one item that I think is very important for public health reasons, and we have done this for the last 3 or 4 years. This is the gain appropriation, Mr. Chairman. So I'd like to move that we incorporate the gain appropriation as we have in the past, and
All right.
that it be overseen by the Department of Public Health, the appropriation, since it is a public health issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's an amendment by a motion by Senator Guthers to amend the bill to include in the miscellaneous appropriations provision
You wanna do it in the Department of Ag section?
No. An amendment that would fund the gain operation for the operation of the animal shelter. The amount would be $100,000. That was last year's appropriation. Yeah. And that would then be overseen by public health, probably under environmental health. All right. On that amendment, Senator Taidawi,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The funding source is coming from,
the general fund. There's about $100,000, $200,000 left in the general fund. So it's,
okay.
after this, there's about 50,000 left.
Okay, then I reserve that 50,000 for Oasis. I'm serious. Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
So on that amendment, no objection, the amendment carries. There is only, did we fund Oasis?
Not specifically.
They'll write the amendment and we'll make sure. It's in there. Okay. All right, we're now,
We really should have probably taken them out from Ag or public health.
we're back in session. We're on the miscellaneous provision, and that begins on page 200. These are existing carryover miscellaneous provisions, the majority of them. The only change in section 1 is that the indirect cost fund, that we're allowing the indirect cost to fund agencies that are covered in statute as being with a direct relationship with the indirect cost fund. Any amendment or deletion on section?
Just a point of information,
Yes.
if I may, Mr. Speaker. Is there a general understanding that we're going to revert back to the previous pages on the hate compensation when
Yes,
language is finalized?
that's correct. We're
Okay,
waiting for
just
that.
as long. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah, that's an outstanding amendment, so. All right, any amendment or deletion to section 1? We're now in section 2. Section 2 is, again, a carry forward from last year's budget, in which we just pulled the costs for the utility costs, and that the appropriations are released on a monthly basis. Any amendment or deletion? All right. We're now section 3, which is the health benefits cost account. Again, this is a carry forward from last year, in which we develop a pool under the health insurance, health benefit, that all the departments and agencies are funded into this pool account, and it's reflected you'll see the amounts for the departments and agencies in the budget. So this is a carry forward from last year. Amendments or deletions? None. The vacancy pool cost account, again, this pools the funded vacancies within the departments and agencies. Last year, there was some question on exactly which vacancies are funded, and this year, we showed actually in the committee report and the department section what vacancies are funded for those agencies. So those agencies know which vacancies being funded and the money's in the vacancy pool cost account. And again, this is a carry forward with the additional clarification of where those vacancies are in the appropriate agency section. The deficit reduction is the prior year obligations and for the payment of prior year obligations. And I have Senator Espaldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'd like to proffer an amendment, and I believe it's just been passed out. And basically on line 19, after the words Guam Code annotated, to insert a sentence that says, the obligations shall be paid in the order of when they were incurred, with the longest outstanding obligation being paid first, and so forth. Bottom line, the first in, first out. Let's pay the oldest debts, try to bring it current, and that's the gist of this amendment, Mr. Chairman.
All right. On the amendment by Senator Espaldon?
This is on page 202.
202.
On line number 19, after the word Guam Code annotated, the sentence, the obligations shall be paid in the order of when they were incurred, with the longest outstanding obligation being paid first, and so forth. That would be the amendment to this section.
Basically, first in, first out.
First in, first out.
Yeah. All right. No objections? Amendment carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We're now on section 6, which is special retirement provision. And this is the provision for the Department of Education and the Guam Memorial Hospital, in which they're able to retire if you pay up their outstanding obligation. And this is, again, a carry forward provision. They have an outstanding note to to the retirement fund, and we're making the payments on a monthly basis. And then they're able to, when department or agency employee then from DOE or GMH retires, they have to pay that person's retirement account and bring him to full. And this is a continuation of, right. And then the way that the interest, the payments were calculated before was, it was fixed that no matter what your outstanding balance, it's at about $192,000 a month. Each.
About 400 a month.
Yeah, so $400,000 a month. So now we're making these payments based on the outstanding liability, and that the interest rate will be the actual interest rate earned by the retirement fund account. So it's tied to the rate of return versus the current mandatory $192,000 payment. And then it's reconciled at the end of the fiscal year. So again, the language is carried forward, with the exception that there's that amendment for pegging the interest rate to the actual rate of return by the retirement fund. Any objections? No objections? No additional deletions, rather? Temporary employment of retired corrections officer. This is section 9. And this is a carryover from previous budgets, allowing DOC to hire retired officers for shortfall in staffing. No additions or deletions. Section 10 is the temporary employment of police officers. Again, this is a carry forward authorization. No additions or deletions. Section 11 is the temporary employment of firefighters. And again, these are the agencies that may have need for them based upon their enrollment in the National Guard and deployment and those issues. So no additions or deletions. The temporary employment of retired customs and quarantine officers. Once again, the same rationale, and it's a carry forward from the previous years. No additions or deletions. Section 13 is for Department of Revenue taxation employees. This allows the staffing levels there to be supplemented by retired office department employees for rev and tax, carry forward from previous budgets. No additions or deletions. Section 14 is the local tenant exemption during the absence of the medical examiner. This allows the medical examiner to have someone step in his place without in the appointment if he is off island or going on vacation, since we only have one. And again, carry forward from previous budgets. No additions or deletions. Section 15 is the advance payment for medical services in order to expedite MIP patients at Joint Commission accredited facilities. And again, this is a carry forward provision to allow us to take advantage of these institutions that offer reduced rates for MIP patients, but may require advance payment, and so this allows that to occur. And this is a carry forward. No additions or deletions. Section 16 is the transfer of employees. Again, this is a carry forward from previous budgets, and it continues as it is in previous budgets, no amendments at all. Section 17, contracts exceeding funds restriction. This is a carry forward provision from previous budgets, and it just limits the contracts to what is allotted for the contract. No additions or deletions. Section 18, restrictions of executive hiring, branch hiring of unclassified employees. Again, it restricts the unclassified employees to teaching positions at UOG. Again, this is all from previous budgets, and there were no additions or deletions to this from previous budgets. Any additions or deletions? None. We'll then proceed to Section 18, which is the board and commission meeting stipends. This is a carry forward from previous budgets in which we allow the departments and agencies with boards to pay the stipends out of their operation funds. There is one addition here, and this is the last sentence basically allows the department or the board to pay any member who has served on a board continuously for 10 years or more may receive a stipend totaling no more than, so you strike out the word over. This is on page 212, line 18. You strike out the word over, and it says, any board member who has served on a board continuously for 10 years or more may receive a stipend totaling no more than $250 per month for meetings attended. However, board and commission members may elect not to receive their compensation. We have a couple of boards in which we really have, over the years, members have dedicated themselves to the board and have continuously served through all governors for 10 years and more. And they're still limited to 100. And so we had a request from some of these board members to see if they've served for 10 years or more, can they at least get up to 250? So Senator Agun, Senator Espodan, and then Senator Blas, I see.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I just have a question in regards to the maximum amount. I mean, I understand the rationale, and I'm supportive of that. It's just that should an individual who has served in excess of 10 years, let's say, for example, the law provides for your first meeting is $50 or whatever the stipend amount is, $100 for the one meeting, and then not to exceed double that. So it's $50, not to exceed $100. Now, the way I read this is that even if that member were to attend one board meeting, are we allowing for that member to receive the maximum of $250?
No.
Or
No, we're allowing him to receive $50 per meeting up to a maximum. The intent is $50 per meeting up to a maximum of $250 a month. So
Then-
if they
then-
attend 8 meetings, it's still $250 maximum. If they attend 4, it's only $200.
But even the existing system, Mr. Speaker, is you have for one meeting up to a maximum of 2 meetings, not to exceed $100. With the $50 example per meeting stipend, not to exceed $100 per month. Now, in this case, I don't know if an amendment may be proper to make sure that in fact the language reads 2 meetings a month or something to that effect. Because regardless as to how many meetings, even if an individual who's receiving a $50 stipend has 4 or 5 meetings that month, the maximum he or she can receive is $100
That's correct.
at the month. And that's why I'm trying to get a little bit of clarity here. But hopefully I'll listen to some of the comments of our colleagues and see if that's an issue, because the $250 is justifiable. Giving it to individuals who have served our community and boards and commissions in excess of 10 years certainly is very noble in this case, and I support that. It's just making sure that it's understood. The first meeting, if the board right now receives $50 a meeting, your first meeting will be $50, and then if you attend your second meeting, then your second meeting conceivably will give you $200
No.
at the end of the month. So it adds
Okay.
up to
No,
$250.
that's not the intent.
Okay. So is that the intent, Mr. Speaker?
No, the intent is that for every meeting you attend, you get $50. If you're a 10-year tenure, for every meeting you attend, you get $50, and you can get up to $250 if you attend 5 meetings, but you can't get up to $250 if you attend 4 meetings.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is that what this says?
Yes, it allows you $50. Well, I'm not sure what it says. Well, I'm sure because the statute says that you get $50 a meeting. That's the statute. And a cap of 100. And we're saying that if you have served on the board for 10 years or more, your cap is $250 at $50 a meeting.
Oh,
No, we don't want to pay them more per meeting. We just want to earn more money, to get paid for extra meetings above 2, up to $250. The per meeting fee remains at $50. Even if you serve 10 years, your per meeting fee is still $50. But if you're 10 years, if you attend more than 2 meetings, you can get paid you basically can get paid for 3 extra meetings. Because some boards meet 5, 6, 7 times, and you can only earn $100 even if you attend all of those meetings. If you've served more than 10 years, you can earn $250.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Senator Espada.
Just a technical amendment, only because I was lost when you were referring to Section 18. I believe this should be Section 19.
I think you're right.
Thank you.
That's right. So the numbering is wrong. And so this number the amendment is to change Section 18, under boards and commission stipends, to Section 19.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So, all right. Thank you very much for that, Senator Espada. Okay. Any other discussion? Senator Blas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, just to make understood, we did strike out the word over.
Yes, correct.
Okay. With regards to who's going to make this decision?
With regards to
If the individual served 10 years or more, that he can receive up to $250. Is that by decision of the board? Or who makes that decision as to whether or not this individual meets the criteria?
Yeah, I guess the executive director will certify that the board member has served over 10 years and would be allowed then to be paid above the $100 a month. The executive secretary of the board would,
So this will be done by the board itself in as
at the
far
board
as?
level, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. Any other additions or deletions? None? Those amendments then are incorporated. Section 20, contracts. Again, this is a provision that exists in other budgets, and there were no amendments or deletions that were proposed in what you see here from the previous budgets. And it, positions in the classified and non-classified service shall not be filled pursuant to the contractual arrangement except for as provided in these, in the FY 2011 budgets, and these are for those health professionals and so forth. So it's the same language as in previous budgets. No additions or deletions. Section 21 is the amendment to comparative revenue and expenditure reporting. This carry forward. Section 21. I believe these are also carry forward language from previous budgets. Okay. Section 22, God bless you, sir. Section 22 are for wireless communication restrictions. Again, these are existing provision from previous budgets, and no changes were made by the committee, and it's a carry forward language. Any changes or deletions? None. Section 23 is exception for internet and data network and wireless non-mobile services. Again, this was a carry forward from last budget, which recognizes this voice over internet protocols and allows that to be allowed for wireless communication. No changes or deletions. Section 24, deposit for drug testing. Chris, this carry forward? No, this one, no. Okay. These, the Section 24 identifies the funding source of the drug testing appropriations composed in the budget, so that we are identifying where those appropriations and the source of those appropriations. So 2,000 comes out of the general fund, 385 is from the contractor's license fund, and these are where there are drug testing appropriations in the departments and agencies. This identifies the funding source for those drug testing appropriation. Senator Muñoz-Barnes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just want to reiterate that based on this section, that the money will be deposited into the Department of Administration, right?
That's correct.
And they would be the one tasked for the implementation of
Yeah.
the payment of all testings of the government of Guam employees, right?
Yes,
As-
because these are for new hires.
Right.
And Department of Administration handles the new hires.
Right, and the breakdowns are accordingly
Yes.
as you stated.
Right.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. No changes or, Senator Espadon?
Just to clarify, Mr. Chair, the drug testing, I mean, this money is for drug testing on new hires to the government of Guam?
That's correct. And departments and agencies submitted as part of their budget drug testing for new hires. And so this is
Okay.
where those agencies had funding and the source of those funding.
Just a point of information again, Mr. Chair, if I could, any idea how much one test costs?
30,
Okay.
what is it? 3750. Oh, yeah. Senator Bloss is more up on that than I am.
Okay, so
Okay.
this will be covered, I would imagine, roughly 200 drug tests. Something like that.
For initial hires, yes.
For new hires. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Section 25 is the deposit for random drug testing for testing designated positions. And this is $13,930 is appropriated for random testing for those test designated positions. Yes, Senator Blas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With regards to Section 25, can you remind me, was there a provision like this in last year's budget?
There was, but it didn't separate.
It didn't separate it was lumped together. New hire and test designated positions were combined. This year, we separated them.
Okay, I appreciate that. Well, with regards to the number of random drug tests that the government had to pay for, did we expend all of that money?
Yeah. We'll find out. We don't know at this time.
Yeah, and the reason why I'm asking this, sir, is with regards to this is maybe move that money from over there, bring it back up, and move it over here so we can free up some of this money and move it elsewhere.
All right,
Okay, thank you.
we'll find that out. Okay. Section 26 are program reporting requirements for employment placement, and job testing programs at the Guam Community College. I'm sorry, University of Guam and the Department of Labor. And this is a requirement that the President of the University of Guam and GCC Labor transmit to Magalahan Guahan and the Speaker no later than June 30 of each year the actual number of program completers and/or certificates issued for each program and employment data for said program completed for 2 years following the completion of the respective programs to include salary levels, job location, and whether job is in the same field of the program. And the report is mandated to, in subsection A, shall be posted on each of the agency's website. And this was, is this a carry forward? Yeah, and this is a carry forward, and we're no. I think we'll just have to. This requires the three agencies to basically report on how many people we train, how many get jobs, and how much are they earning in those jobs. And it gives us an opportunity to then examine the efficiency and effectiveness of these appropriations we made to the job programs. And it's from last year's budget as well. It's a, Senator Espadon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a matter of interest. Did we get a report on June 30th of this year? I mean, just to know what the numbers might be?
I'll check with the Speaker's office, and the clerks maybe would be able to tell us.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Section 27 is the cost accounts created requiring a carryover. This is a carryover provision. In the cost accounts, if they require existing automatic postage within the GovGuam financial management system to be manually duplicated to confirm the requirements of this act, the Department of Administration may instead report the details outside of the financial management system. And this is kind of to allow the FSM financial management system, FMS, to integrate DOE's report, which is outside of the AS400 system. So it allows that integration to be posted outside of the automatic posting system because the systems are not integrated, but the information is still reported.
That's what's left from this year's appropriation.
Okay. For sure? How do you know?
What's that? How do you know? So we have an email from DOA.
Oh, the Senator Bloss, the remaining appropriation from the this year's appropriation for drug testing, there's still a balance of $2,393 in the drug testing account for this fiscal year. So we got about 2 months left. So August, September, 1 month left. The total appropriation last year was $25,000. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. We're now in there might be new hire testing. We're now in Chapter 13, Administrative Provisions.
This was an amendment for they didn't raise their hands, but do you want to?
Section 1 is the authorization for matching requirements in federal grant and aids, a carry forward which allows the departments to expend the funds appropriated to match federal grants. Number two is Section 2 is the carryover of local and federal matching grants, same provision as in previous budgets, allows it to go past the fiscal year. If the appropriations go past the fiscal year, so it allows it to be carried forward into calendar year and grant years. Section 3, the retirement fund contribution rate. This is set by statute and is adjusted. And last year, the contribution rate was 26.04. And this year, the retirement fund contribution rate has been increased to 27.46 based upon the actuarial tables. So this is an increase. This added about an extra $10 million. At the minimum, an extra $10 million to the payroll cost of the government of Guam just for the increase in the retirement fund contribution. Section 4 is the autonomous agency, revenue and expenditure reports to the Magaloy Guahan and Legislature Guahan. Again, this is an existing requirement in the current budget and is carried forward to ensure that we continue to get those reports from the department and agencies. Section 5 is the revenue tracking report, and this is the report from BBMR, and it is an existing requirement and carries forward with no amendments. Section 6 is the prior year appropriations report. Again, this is a current existing requirement in the budget and is carried forward as an administrative requirement in FY 2011. No additions or deletions. Section 7 is exemption from BBMR allotment release control. And again, this is carry forward language, and the departments and agencies are the Mayor's Council, the Office of Public Accountability, Office of Finance and Budget, the Office of the Attorney General, Revenue Tax, and Legislature Guahan, and the Unified Judiciary are exempt from the allotment controls of BBMR. Senator Palacios.
Sir, I think it's just a typo on line 4 on that page where it says October 31st, 2011. I think it would have to read October 31st, 2010. The submission of the listing of a drawdown, the schedule
Yes.
for drawdown.
That's correct.
2010. Thank you.
2010.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
On that amendment then, to change 2011 to 2010, no objections. Amendment passes. Section 8 is Special Fund Transfer Authority. This allows the Governor of Guam to transfer funds out of the special fund, and then he's required to replace those funds when the funds become available. This is existing transfer authority language from the current budget and previous budgets. Additions, Senator Agan. It
Thank you
says
ve-
the Magaloy and not the Segundo Magaloy.
Mr. Speaker. Ko ba faisal po este
Okay.
utungan do kada mes mananayit a report po este. Do we know how much and from what special funds this provision has been applied for in fiscal year 10? And if my issue really is more or less, have these special funds been reimbursed?
Right.
Yeah, that's really my follow-up issue, not necessarily the extraction, because the flexibility is necessary, understanding the revenue projections or the actual cash receipt. It's more or less, have these special funds been reimbursed? Or, I don't know if it provides for reimbursement of special funds in fiscal year 2011 fund collection, so that it can cover fiscal year 10 extractions.
Okay.
I guess that's...
I've looked at those transfers, and there may have been one or two transfers out of special funds into the general fund. I haven't seen those, but I haven't seen a report on the transfer back. So I haven't seen that. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I know. That's one of the special funds that they've taken money out of. So, okay. So we'll get that information. The Section 9 is the secondary and tertiary road projects. Again, this is a continuing appropriation. The additional language in this allows the transfers. Because this is like the third year we're carrying this forward, and all of the appropriation may have been exhausted. In this fiscal year, we're asking the BBMR and I'm sorry, that should read Department of Public Works, not Department of Education. So this requires BBMR and the Department of Public Works to report to the Legislature and Guam the status and the balance of the appropriation, just so that we'll know that we don't have to carry it forward next year if all of the appropriations have been exhausted. Section 10, facilities and insurance requirement. Again, this is a carry forward provision. As you know, some of the buildings have been funded by FEMA, and as part of the funding by FEMA for repair or construction, they require insurance. And so this allows the departments and agencies to take money from operations and pay for the insurance for these facilities. Senator Blas.
Mr. Chair, do we have any ideas to how much and whether or not we're actually complying to and conforming to the insurance requirements from FEMA?
Yes, I know that there are some, like DOE, I know, you'll see a line for insurance because they were the bulk of recipients. And I really haven't seen the insurance from other buildings. I know that, for example, all the autonomous agencies, I see the line for insurance for their buildings.
Yeah,
most of the Guam buildings are rented at this time. You know, we really, with the exception of, for example, the administration building, and I don't even know if we received any FEMA funds for that repair.
No, we didn't. Not for DOA, but I know we did receive funds for Government House, Governor's Office.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and I've seen some insurance in the cost, some line for insurance on those facilities.
Okay. Is there a way that we can find?
Sure, we'll ask for a report.
Thank you.
And we'll look at that. Senator Eda, did you have your hand? Okay. All right. Reporting requirements for nonprofits. Once again, this is a carry forward provision from previous budgets, and there are no changes that were made to that carry forward provision. All nonprofits who receive a grant have to file with financial reports for how that money is spent. Section 12, appropriations to the Contractors License Board and Appeals Board, that if they're unexpended, they revert to the general fund. This is existing language and existing requirements.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Eda.
Yeah. On Section 12, I would like to raise an objection, and well, actually, I would like to move that we strike that, because I think that in the next several years, these two entities are going to be playing a very important role in the construction industry with the projected increase. And so, you know, I'm afraid that once that money goes into the black hole, they'll never see that again. And I can only see that as the construction activities increase, they're going to have to step up to the plate. And I would just simply ask that at least for the next several years here, we strike that, and they're only going to be able to spend anyway. And if we see that, you know, they're coming in, that there's excess funds in there, then at that time, I think maybe the committee could.
Okay.
So I would move that we strike Section 12.
All right. On the motion to strike Section 12, no objections? The amendment then to strike Section 12 carries, and then all the other sections will be renumbered accordingly. He's going to get Section 13, old Section 13, before renumbering, just so we can facilitate. Fund reversions, unless otherwise specified in this act, general fund reversions. This is again existing language. General fund reverts to the general fund. The tourist attraction fund reverts to the tourist attraction fund, and Healthy Futures Fund reverts to the Healthy Futures Fund. And it doesn't go into any other funds. So no additions or deletions. Section 14, restriction on home use of government of Guam vehicles. This is existing language, again, that allows basically the first responders and those who are authorized to take vehicles home continue to do so. No objections and or additions or deletions. Section 15 is the transfer authority of Imagalahinguahan. And this is existing language. No additional amendment in this from last budget year. And Senator Cruz, I have here recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I have no objection to the section, but might we need to put something in here? I know that several of our colleagues may be moving there.
Oh.
And can we have a provision that says that they can't use more than 1/4 of the total appropriation for the executive direction? I mean, I'd sure hate for somebody to go to Adelup in January and find that the entire
Coffers.
appropriation, no, the entire appropriation has been transferred to the, because we've seen that in previous years when we've received reports from BBMR where everybody's at less than 25% for the first quarter, but the governor's office is already at 60%. Can we put a provision in there to make sure that whoever comes in next, I mean, it's not me, so it's not that it's self-interest. I'm just protecting the next administration, whoever that may be, but we've got to protect to make sure that there's money left.
How, okay, is that an amendment?
Yes.
Okay. On the amendment by Speaker Cruz, can we limit it to personnel? The only thing is, you know, some of these, let's just have a short recess. Committee of the Whole is back in session. We had looked up the language regarding administrations that are transitioning out of office. And while there are some controls there, the amendment by Senator Cruz will be, Senator Cruz, would you just restate your amendment to be sure, after reading that?
I would just like to have an amendment that says that no more than one-fourth of the personnel budget may be expended.
Okay. So on the amendment by Senator Cruz to add to the administrative provisions a new section that would restrict the expenditure of funds appropriated in due executive direction, be restricted to expending no more than 1/4 of the appropriations for executive direction. Yeah. So, okay? All right. On that amendment, no objections. That amendment will carry. Section 16 is the emails for government-paid addresses, that they will be posted on the website if the email address is paid for with government funds. Again, this is a carry-forward provision from previous budgets. No additions or deletions. Section 17 are combined purchase of textbooks. Again, this is a carry-forward provision from previous budgets and no change were made. No additions or deletions. Section 18 is the uniform allowances. This is a carry-forward provision from previous budgets, which sets the uniform allowance at no less than $350 and is to be paid out by the end of the first quarter. No additions or deletions. Section 19, the administration of deficit reduction, that Department of Administration is tasked with that duty, and this is a continued provision. No additions or deletions. Section 20, revenue processing. Is a carry-forward provision from previous budgets, and there are no changes in this. No changes or deletions. Section 21 would be...
No, this is new. This is new. This is the integration of online submission of the...
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted for the record to state that this revenue processing is a new provision, and this would task RevTax to develop a plan to integrate the online tax filing and try to accelerate that process by doing a survey from the major accounting firms on what tax software they're using, and then compatibility with the Department of Revenue and Taxation, and then submit a plan to the legislature and the governor how to best facilitate electronic processing on Guam. To the credit, RevTax has continued to move forward in this direction, but we wanted to put a little bit more timelines. Section 21 would be moved to the end. That's a severability clause. This is a little cut and paste here, and so we would move the severability clause to the end, just as a technical amendment. Sever to be enacted clause. Section 22 is then government staffing patterns. This is an existing requirement that requires the staffing patterns to be posted. Is there
That's your copy?
Yeah.
That's your amendment.
There's a final amendment, Senator Ogden?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I think that I first of all just thank you for, or just allowing me to make a statement on Section 22 in terms of the government staffing pattern. A tremendous number of our government organizations and agencies have really complied with this, and in conjunction with the financial reports on a monthly basis, the staffing pattern on a quarterly basis. And I just wanted to note that for the record, that in this particular case, we've seen a lot of these agencies provide that information through the Speaker's office to all of the senators here. And it's very helpful in terms of understanding the people, resources that exist within a particular department, and the individuals or the new individuals that are being recruited on a daily basis by this government. So I just want to extend kudos and undokuluna sizus masi to our government agencies for complying with this portion of the law, because it was an added task, but it's an added task that provides transparency and openness in terms of where the people's money is being expended. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator. Senator, just for the record also, we modified the staffing pattern reporting. We've been working, and you're right, the departments and agencies have reported these staffing patterns religiously, and we thank them for that. But we also found out that the Department of Administration develops a staffing pattern that is automated based on the payroll register. And rather than continuing to require the individual departments, that now the staffing pattern as posted by the Department of Administration could satisfy that report. So that will free up a little bit more time in the agencies and the departments. Oh yeah. No, because it's the agencies that have been filing them anyway. And so we're allowing them to recognize that. Yeah, and they do that report anyway. It's not a new report. It's an automated report. So, okay. There's an amendment that I wanted to propose, and it's been passed out. And it really modifies the Public Law 30-55. Yeah, Senator Barnes, could you? No, it's just to account for the make work pay provision.
On that effort, Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and read the amendment. It just says this amendment will occur on Chapter 13, Administrative Provisions, Section 21. Make the work pay accounting error adjustment to the FY 2010 Budget Act, and it says subsection A, Chapter I, Section 2A of Public Law 30-55 is amended as follows. Provision for tax refund payments is now 134,260,000.
Yes.
Total general fund revenue available for operations is 512,901,145, and then the provisions for tax refund payments are at now 134,260,000, and then the total general fund revenues available for appropriations for the 2010 Budget Act is, or was, 507,818,638. And then a new subsection F is added to Chapter 1, Section 2 of Public Law 30-55. F would read the Bureau of Budget Management and Research and the Department of Administration shall adjust all budgetary accounts, both revenue projections and appropriation levels, to reflect the amendment of Public Law 30-55 in Chapter 13, Section 21A of this Act. These adjustments shall be made prior to the closing of all FY 2010 accounts.
Yeah. And this is basically to recognize what the auditors have done in terms of backing out that make work pay that they put into revenues, and they've backed that out and they've put it into tax refunds or the provision for refunds. So this recognizes those adjustments and reconciles the revenue adoptions with the adjustments. Senator Uggan?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for that explanation. Just in terms of everything that we've discussed today,
right,
with this entire budget process, I was looking at the overall appropriation agencies as well as operations of an amount of $535 million. Now, that's to the agencies, exclusive of the tax refunds.
Correct.
Now, the make to work, we anticipate to receive actual cash of $35 million.
Right.
So that's where, above and beyond, please, I just need clarity here. Above and beyond the 535, revenue projection would be the additional 34, or as part of the 535, 34 will be there, so now it's being redirected towards tax refunds.
That's correct, in FY 2010.
So all of the appropriations.
This is just a 2010 adjustment.
Oh, this is
2010.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's why I kept mentioning 535, not 540.
Right.
Because 540 was the 2010
So
revenue
this recognizes
projection.
the adjustments made by the auditors.
So basically, by the close of this fiscal year, regardless as to what anyone says in this hallway, we would have a balanced budget
Yes.
with this amendment.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much. No objections? The amendment carries. We have concluded the discussion on Bill 439 as we've gone through. We did defer discussion on Chapter 2, Education, and we still have a pending amendment on, we're on administrative provisions, Speaker. Anybody? Yes, Chapter 13, Administrative Provisions. We're still in this chapter. Yeah, and that's the end. We're at the end. Senator Guthertz? No, we'll go with Judy.
Retired professors. Retired professors.
Okay, yes. Oh, is it? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In consultation with our education chair, and after thoughtful consideration, I'd like to offer an amendment. And the amendment has been passed out on behalf of myself and the speaker.
Okay.
It's a very simple amendment. The amendment would read as possible, and this would be in the miscellaneous provisions. A new section would be added to read Administration of the Office of Adequate Education, Surahanu. Section 11100 of Title 17 GCA is hereby amended to read. Section 11100, Creation of Office. The Office of Adequate Education, Surahanu, hereinafter referred to as the Education Surahanu, is hereby established as an entity of the Office of the Attorney General of Guam. It is operationally independent from Imaglahi Guahan, Legislature Guahan, the Department of Education, and the Guam Education Policy Board. Imaglahan Guahan, Legislation Guahan, DOE, or the board shall not prevent, impair, or prohibit the Education Surahanu from initiating, carrying out, or completing his duties. The Education Surahanu shall be the head of the office. Basically, Mr. Chairman, this amendment simply transfers the office of the Education Surahanu to the Attorney General's office. And the Education Surahanu would report to the Attorney General. Now, the rationale for this move is to ensure that there is proper oversight of the Education Surhanu's office, and also to give it a little more status in terms of its enforcement authorities. Working with the Attorney General more directly, I think, would help enhance the role of the office of the Surahanu. At the same time, as you know, Mr. Chairman, we just saw a recent development regarding our school buses and problems with safety inspections and actions by Public Works, which seems to counter requirements of law and sets a really bad precedent in terms of having school buses on the road that have not been properly inspected and certified as such. The concerns there really were espoused by the Attorney General, not by the Education Surahanu, which really surprised me. I would have thought the Education Surahanu, as part of the 14 points, would have caught on real quick to that issue and intervened. So I think maybe the Education Surahanu would have a better opportunity and more support for the mission of that office with the important powers of the Attorney General behind that office. So that is the rationale for the transfer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Palacios and then Speaker Wampat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, of course, I support the idea, but It is my understanding that the Education Suruhano's actually main purpose is to identify deficiencies within the school systems that might give rise to potential suit, I guess, by parents of students or students against the school. Now, of course, the identification of these deficiencies will become knowledge then to the AG. I'm concerned about the potential conflict of interest, that if there has to be a prosecution or enforcement of discipline, rather deficiencies for corrective action, or if it's a suit brought against, what would then be the role of the Education Suruhano with this kind of language that the AG shall not prevent, impair, or prohibit the Education Suruhano from initiating or carrying out. There appears to be a complete independence of that entity within the AG, much like I guess the parole board within the correction. Would there be a conflict of interest in this kind of situation? That they're going to go ahead and identify and take corrective action?
I think I have two people who want to yield to that question.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to be clear. I just want to be clear that corrective action is taken against the Department of Education by the Department of Education and so forth, and that any suit will be mitigated. Or please explain. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Guthers. Would you yield to that question, or yes?
Thank you very much, Ms. Chairman. Actually, I look at this as a facilitation of any actions on the part of the Suruhano to want to file suit. He would have to work with the Attorney General regardless, and I think the Attorney General would be a very strong office to assist him in pursuing any suit if a suit is necessary. I don't see any conflict at all, and I think, if anything, we're going to see a more proactive response to the concerns that are expressed by the Office of the Suruhano, or the Suruhano, because the Attorney General will be backing that office up in a more direct and forthright way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Palacios, have you concluded your comments?
Just one last remark. The conflict there's a potential conflict in that if the office of the Suruhano is the lenient party in this situation, for example, or the liberal individual and the AG is the conservative individual, both of whom have knowledge, of course, of the deficiency. Of course, if the office of the Suruhano said, I'm not prepared to file suit, and the AG said, well, there is sufficient grounds, then there's conflict, I guess, in that it can be used by parents of students, whichever is the individual that seem to favor the position of the parent, then who files suit? It appears here then that the ultimate decision to file suit for compliance by the school of any deficiency rests with the office of the Suruhano as the ultimate authority. That's my interpretation of this. So I just want to make sure that there's no conflict between the AG and the office of the Suruhano within the AG's office. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Palacios. Speaker Wampat, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the question from the senator from Chalampago. It's a very good question, as a matter of fact, and the way the amendment is written is that if it was exactly the way it is right now, which says that it is an independent entity and we transfer the individual and the office to the AG's office, then there will be that conflict. However, the amendment here is that it would not be an independent entity, but rather be an arm now of the Office of the Attorney General. And it actually would strengthen its responsibilities and duties when you know the Surahanu feels that he's ready to move forward with a suit. I mean, and Mr. Chairman, it's the AG has just demonstrated that already, and most recently by saying that these buses, that the government of Guam must inspect these buses and make sure that they're safe to transport our children. So already the AG's office is acting, as that the buck stops. I'm sorry. I shouldn't even be listening to my colleague here on the side. But you're right. The AG's office is, a watchdog. The Surahano is also a watchdog. It's just specifically, however, for education and in ensuring that the 14 points are being adhered to. The other reasons that would support this, aside from just what recently happened, it's amazing how this full circle has actually happened. Was that it started with the AG closing down certain schools. And then we immediately put in an education Surahano to assure then that our schools are fulfilling the mandates. And now here we are back again. We've made that full circle already. And again, the AG, has done just that. When we do know that ultimately it will be the regulatory agencies that can turn around and shut down departments and agencies for health and safety violations, and that's actually the situation for DOE in terms of public health officials, the Guam Fire Department as well. So it's and then with the AG, with them, it just gives those regulatory agencies more teeth in the actions that they want to take. The other argument that supports this, that I feel would support this, Mr. Speaker, is that, Mr. Chairman, is that the Surahanu is currently under the governor's office, and it is appointed, yes, by the governor. And as we all know, that this is a lame duck administration right now. I fear that as a result, again, of a new administration coming in, that there will be a change, I'm sure, and then again a void for we don't know how long it would take before again the Surahanu's position will be filled. I'm hoping that with this transfer that we will be able to stabilize it and secure the individual to continue in whether it's this individual or not. That can be decided, of course, later. But more importantly is to stabilize and secure the position and the responsibilities of this education Surahano, who would then be housed at the AG's office, is an arm of the AG, and it'll be this individual who continue then to do the work, and rather not have to duplicate what the AG's office would do. And then the AG can just concentrate on prosecution, and you have this individual then as an arm of the AG's office. And I think that, with those arguments, that it just strengthens the Surahanu's office. It gives it more teeth if it is going to sue the government as well. So I hope that my colleagues will support this transfer.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Any other discussion on the amendment? Any objection to the amendment? No objection? The amendment carries then. Okay. All right. We have, there was an amendment earlier that was offered by Senator Uggan, I believe, on the Appeals Board. Senator Uggan? Remember the carry up to the amount expended and the appropriation, and we have that amendment now that you requested. Yeah. I'm sorry.
The appeals?
Yeah.
We need copies.
We need copies of it.
Copies of this one and this one.
They're the Hay plan, right. We'll just have a 5-minute recess until we get those copies. Senator Ogden, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to propose an amendment. This is on Chapter 5, Section number 1, sub number 3. It's hereby amended, and to delete the last. It's regarding the funding source for the appeals board. Apparently, yesterday we had discussed it very briefly in terms of some concerns in the interpretation of that section, and the proposed amendment is just to delete the last two lines, which reads, provided such expense does not exceed the total amount appropriated to the board for its operations from all sources of revenue. So basically, this allows the amendment itself, or this section itself, as written, allows for the appeals board to expend up to the level of revenues collected in accordance with the appropriations.
Oh, okay.
It's very simple. So it's consistent with the appropriation level provided in the budget.
Okay. On the amendment, there's no objection. Amendment carries.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I know that this is perhaps an opportunity to be able to entertain other amendments, but I do have one that deals directly with GMH. Can I request a consideration of the chair to revert back to the GMH section?
All right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and Senators, I have an amendment before you. It was circulated, and if you can please follow me along in this, is the legislative intent, Section 1. There's some amendments there to delete the percentage.
Yes.
And basically the amendment is self-explanatory if you read it, but just for the consumption of our viewership, what it is there's been a request by representatives from the Guam Memorial Hospital Authority to be able to allow them and grant them the flexibility to expend the appropriations that's provided herein, with some limitations. And the limitations is obviously some of the proceeds will be applied directly towards the matching requirement for Medicaid. And then they're asking that the additional restriction on the application towards MIP, that flexibility be given to the administration and to the board rather than codified, because it gives them a little bit more flexibility in how they can expend their funds and take care of their operational requirements. So I'm asking consideration on the part of the members of the body if by any chance we can adopt this and accept this amendment. And like I said, it basically would go back in and take a look at the appropriation under the pharmaceutical funds, allow for up to 50% of those proceeds, $4 million, to go directly towards matching requirement for Medicaid, and then also give them that flexibility for the application of the remaining balance of those funds. So, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to present that amendment before the body, please.
All right. On the amendment? Senator Spodon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was reading through that and I was trying to follow the good author's explanation, and I just got lost. Could I take 1 minute just to talk with the good author on this one?
Yes.
Thank
sure.
you.
Jim. Back in session, Senator Espadon. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. No objections?
Just one quick statement, and this is just to reiterate, please, Mr. Speaker, in terms of looking at GMAH's actual anticipated cash receipts from the government of Guam, we're looking at $8 million being appropriated out of the pharmaceutical funds and available to GMH, of which $4 million, 50% of that shall be utilized for Medicaid matching requirements. We're also looking at the $1 million a year being remitted to GMH out of the tobacco tax so that in fact they can utilize their line of credit of up to $12 million on an annual basis. And then in conjunction with that, MIP from Public Health would also be obligated to try to make payments, appropriate payments based on the billing process to GMH. So rather than looking at any actual cash receipt anticipated reduction for fiscal year 11, it could conceivably be in excess of an additional $3 to $4 or $5 million for GMH to receive in augmenting their operational requirements. So I just wanted to clear that before anyone says otherwise. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you very much. On the amendment, no objections? Amendment carries. We want to go back to Senator Tello Taitagui, who requested that if we could quantify the fund available out of the general fund, that she be requested to make an amendment for the OASIS. Senator Taitagui.
Si Jus Masi, Senor Speaker, Malago Dzu na by na Hamzu Esti. Dispensa du Hanum.
Tafanhita.
Tan Hanum Esti. Dispensa du tomorrow, but I'm trying, and I just wanted to begin that with my first chamorro, as I'm going to attempt doing that from now on. So Malago Zuna by Huna Hanum Halum Esti Malik Malika. Okay, and then I'm going to continue the rest in English. To proffer this amendment, like as mentioned, Section 28, to add Chapter Section 28, the sum of $50,000 is appropriated from the general fund to the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse for the Oasis Empowerment Center for Women. This appropriation is not subject to any transfer authority.
Thank you. Senator Taitagui, if I could just ask, maybe for your indulgence, that and what purpose it would be for the Empowerment Center. I know they run a homeless program for women and alcohol and drug abuse program. So can we just add those language in there?
Yes.
For that purpose?
Yes.
Okay.
Not a problem.
All right. So the amendment then would be to add to the Oasis Empowerment Center for its alcohol and substance abuse program and homeless program for women.
Yes,
okay?
Sir.
All right. So that would be an amendment. So Senator Ada, as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I just want a clarification. Is it 15 or 50,000?
50.
50.
Okay.
All right. Okay, on the amendment, as Senator, I have Senator Blas here, Senator Cruz, Senator Espadon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, I can recognize and appreciate, the need for this, and I really don't want to sound like a pay-go type of individual, but where did this come from, the 50,000?
There was when we totaled up all of our appropriation, we had about 100,000 left on the general fund that we didn't tell anybody about. So it doesn't make the budget unbalanced. This takes it.
That's my concern. Is first off, I didn't want an unbalanced budget, and if we were going to take this from someplace, where did it come from?
Yes.
Okay.
There's
Thank you.
Just about 50, but there's room for rounding. So please. Yes, everything goes to DOE. That's right. So if there's any additional balance left and it's unappropriate, it goes to DOE. So, Senator Cruz.
I support Oasis's projects. I'm just wondering, is this going to be separate from the $883,000 that we appropriated yesterday?
Senator Taitagui is requesting that it be separate from that appropriation. So it's over and above that appropriation. The 880 is, as you know, is divided to the different programs, of which OASIS also gets a program, and,
Right.
yeah. Okay. Senator Espodan?
Yeah, I'm kind of like in that same dilemma in my mind. I understand, and I support the Oasis and everything they're doing out there. The first question has been answered in terms of where the 50,000 come from. I mean, I understand the challenges of the Oasis and whatnot, but I guess my question isn't relevant until the proffer of the amendment can actually articulate for what use the 50,000 will be for.
Yeah, we amended the amendment that it would go to its alcohol, drug abuse, and homeless program. Yeah.
And just again, forgive my ignorance, Mr. Chair. So with the previous statement of there is also 180-something thousand, it was
No, the 880, those for the different programs. Yeah, 3 programs. There's an appropriation for nonprofit partners at Department of Mental Health.
Right.
And $880-some thousand is appropriated to that. And the Oasis Center is a recipient of a portion of that.
Okay.
And this would be on top of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right. Speaker Wampat.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I do support this amendment.
Directly.
You know, I know when we think about it, in particular when we say that these are for the Oasis Empowerment Center for Women, but it's not just women. We always seem to forget that that many of the women who come to these programs are actually pregnant as well. And if we don't start taking care of the women and the children who are born into this world from mothers who are addicted, then the child or the children then become wards of our state. And if we don't start to do this early on, then at the back end, it's going to become very expensive for us. And currently, my understanding is that because of our failure to address some of those concerns in the past, is that we have 4 individuals who are currently off island and left when they're very young and are full adults right now, but we continue to support those individuals. So $50,000 is a shy amount in terms of what the government has to expend when these children then are wards of the state. So I do support this, and I'm hoping that somewhere in the future too we can continue to address a lot of these preventative measures to help these women, because the products would be as a result of what the women have been involved in, whether it's alcohol or substance abuse. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Senator Tadegui, we looked at this kind of appropriation, and the policy in the past has been not to be specific to the entity getting the award, and we've kind of described the program and the award, and then we'll put it in the intent. So there would be a preference that we don't directly say Oasis Empowerment Center, but identify so there's no mistaking, and then put in the intent that this is a program for somebody who runs a women's program. So it's very clear. So, and that would be a technical amendment to be done by the council to be consistent with the other appropriations for the same type. Okay?
Mr. Speaker.
When Pobretso. On the amendment as amended with the technical council to make those technical amendments, no objection. The amendment carries. That concludes the amendment request. We now have, Senator Palacios?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, it's not so much an amendment, but rather technical adjustment on page 169 of the AG's office on the legislative intent, actually, so that it will reflect the amendment.
The Transfer Authority amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
And on line 11, which says on page 169, where it says the AG shall expand to $34,000. I think the preferred language would be the AGs shall expend up to, so that they don't have to spend $34,000 if they don't have to.
Okay. All right. All right, so we'll make those technical adjustments.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We have one final amendment for Senator Uggan that we were waiting for on Section 17. Senator Uggan? Oh, they haven't passed it out? Okay. Yes. Yes. 30-second recess while we copy it.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if I can encourage our colleagues to follow along, I believe it's page 191, dealing directly with the compensation of the Hay Study recipients.
Yes.
What this would do is insert the following phrase within subsection B that will read as follows. And the amendment, I believe everyone, all of our colleagues have a copy of it now. This appropriation precedes transmittal by the governor to the legislature of a final implementable plan to adjust compensation, classification, and benefits, and notwithstanding any other provision of law or this act, this subsection B shall be effective only upon formal adoption by the governor of a plan consistent with the Hay Group Incorporated recommendations and consistent with this act. So the intent here is to ensure that we're all on the same page when it comes to the implementation of the Hay Study based on prior discussions with your office and representatives from the executive branch, and then also based on presentations to members of this body by the Hay Group and the executive branch representatives. So, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to request consideration by our colleagues to consider this amendment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. On the amendment, again, this just reaffirms both the governor and this body's commitment to funding the increase. But we still need to formalize the process and ensure that the governor adopts the recommendation. So the expenditure on the funds will be based upon the formal adoption of that process. So, on the amendment, no objections. The amendment carries. We have now concluded the discussions on the outstanding amendments that we agreed would do. Oh, Senator Respicio? Sure, we can.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment that's kind of a work in process, and we're like a couple minutes before noontime. But just to give you a general idea, I've been trying to brainstorm on a way to get the administration to commit to convening the Guam First Commission. As you know, as an existing law, we had almost 9 attempts, and finally that was adopted by statute through an override of this previous legislature. And what I was thinking and what we're working on right now is that if the governor doesn't convene the Guam First Commission, say within 10 days after the enactment of this act, then he shall have some kind of de-appropriation from his office budget. I've seen throughout the budget, and we've done it before, to force agency heads to comply with certain reporting requirements, and if in the event they didn't comply, they actually got a direct a 20% cut to their salary. Now, if that was implemented, that has yet to be confirmed. But my thinking here is you've also had a provision to require that the Guam Fire Department to move forward with the fees. And if they didn't do that, then they're going to be de-appropriated in their budget. But I'm only looking at the first quarter of fiscal year 2011, because that's what the focus is. Because come January, no matter how you slice it, there'll be a new governor, and I've already got commitments from 2 of the 3 candidates that they support the Guam First Commission, and they would move forward in that direction. It's just getting the current administration, whether it's the governor or the lieutenant governor in an acting capacity, to follow the law. And so my principal point, Mr. Chairman, is at what point do we reach our breaking point to say enough is enough? And you just can't keep ignoring the laws and it being duly adopted and have no consequence for doing so. So can I move that we take a lunch recess, and when we come back, I'll have that amendment ready?
All right.
Thank you very much,
So
Mr.
we'll now
Chairman.
motion to recess until 2:30?
Yeah, move to recess till 2.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We're now in recess until 2. Thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies. Thank you very much, Dismasi. The Committee of the Whole is back in session on the matter of discussion of Bill 439-30. Before we broke for lunch, we had Senator Respicio, who had indicated that he was preparing an amendment for presentation upon our return. And Senator Respicio has finished the amendment.
Yes.
And Senator Respicio, you're recognized on the
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're absolutely correct. When we broke for lunch, I advised the body that I had an amendment in progress, a work in progress, where I'm trying to think of a way where we can do it budgetarily to kind of force the governor's hand to implement a law that took this legislature to override a veto back in December of 2008. But this law is a law that would have, that has created the Guam First Commission, which unites all of our collective leadership from the executive branch, the legislative branch. The mayors are involved. You have members of the business community. You have indigenous rights group. You have the congresswoman there. I mean, we all know what the concept of this Guam First Commission is, and we all know that it was proposed even before the Department of Defense decided to relocate these Marines from Okinawa to Guam. Mr. Chairman, I found a way to offer this amendment to make it qualify based on your law that says that it has to be related to the budget. And this amendment, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to move it. It simply provides that no funds shall be released to the Office of Imagalayan Guahan or transferred from any government account to the Office of Imagalayan Guahan for the first quarter of fiscal year 2011 until Imagalayan Guahan convenes the Commission Guahan and the Guam First Commission. The first meeting is conducted and the vice chairperson is chosen from among its voting members. And the reason why I want to say that the meeting, at this first meeting, a vice chairperson needs to be elected by its voting members, simply because if the governor on his own accord, is so dead set against uniting this community to address this massive military buildup, then just convene the meeting, Governor Camacho, elect a vice chairperson, and just step aside. And what frustrates me and frustrates our colleagues over the years, Mr. Chairman, is that the administration continues to hang its hat on this civilian military task force, which has been the basis to which the governor's been opposing the implementation of this law. This law codifies the work of the civilian military task force, so in no way are we ever wanting to uproot or stop the work of those technical group. What we want to do is unite this community, unite all the leaders to address the military buildup. We've learned recently that Pagat was slated to be the firing range because someone at the governor's office proposed it. That's what General Bice told us in that teleconference. That's what they told the community. That's what they've been saying in the media, that it was an individual at the governor's office that suggested to go take a look at Pagat because that's the suitable site for a firing range. Now, that's the military strategy in dealing with this build-up here on Guam, is to divide and conquer. And I say to the administration, I say that we cannot wait till January to try to rely on whoever becomes the next governor of Guam to convene this commission. The record of decision is slated to be released soon, and I just can't think of a better way to stress to the governor himself, because by his own accord, Mr. Chairman, he's even said that it's inorganic. But he never went to court to seek a declaratory judgment. He never asked for a legal opinion from the Attorney General. I've never seen one. But he's also never proposed a way to this legislature that it'll work. Speaker Wampat tried to be an intermediary. I've asked the governor himself. I asked George Bamba himself. I asked Carlotta Leon Guerrero. I asked what should the legislature do to amend this law to make it workable, so that you don't feel that it infringes on his claim that this goes against his Organic Act authority. What concerns me the most too, Mr. Chairman, is that it took this leadership, this legislature, to unite the collective leadership by way of Resolution 275. And that resolution united the governor's position, the legislature's position, the community's position. In the variety today, the mayors seem miffed because they weren't reached out in the development of Resolution 275, and they felt that we bypassed them. But to the contrary, Mr. Chairman, Mayor Melissa Zavares was at our public hearings in the evening. She expressed to us the mayor's concerns, and those concerns were enumerated in that resolution. We recently seen the acting governor write to the Department of the Navy saying that, you know, they opposed Pagat as a firing range, they opposed the land condemnations, and they also highlighted Resolution 275. Now, can you imagine if we had convened this Guam First Commission from the very beginning, Mr. Chairman, we would have had a better chance and greater opportunity to unite with one voice and let the Department of Defense know and the federal government that these are our conditions to which the military can have their build-up here on Guam. I'm asking that our colleagues vote for this amendment, and if there's a concern that the governor might veto the bill because of this amendment, then let's force his hand. And the fact that we have to pass a budget bill by August 31st, and through your leadership and your great work with the Office of Finance and Budget, we're going to meet that August 31st deadline, then we would have the entire month of September to figure out what the concerns are with the budget if in fact he vetoes it. So there's no threat of a government shutdown. We're not on September 27, 28 like we are in previous budget years where if the governor vetoes it, the government was shut down. So I really ask that this amendment be taken very seriously. I ask that it just provide a means for the governor to convene the Guam First Commission and elect a vice chairperson and just have him step aside. We can't wait till January. The rod is due out soon. We have to have this commission set in place. We have been asking that this commission convene for more than 5 years now, and I think that this amendment would get us one step closer to having this commission convene. And simply put, if the governor doesn't do this, then he won't get his budget. So this amendment clearly, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, is a function of our budget process. So I thank you for the opportunity to present this amendment. I hope our colleagues will vote for this. Thank you.
So this is Masi, Senator Respicio. On the amendment, I have Senator Ugand and Senator Palacios.
This is Marcel, Mr. Speaker, and buenas tardes, amigos todos. Mr. Speaker, eu atan este amendment no propasi e senador. I was looking at some of the verbiage as it reads. It says, no fund shall be released to the office of Imagalahin Guahan or transfer from any other government account for the first quarter of fiscal year 2011. I certainly don't want the chief executive to step forward and say this is going to be a showstopper in terms of the operations of the government, and that is my initial concern. But you know, Mr. Speaker, as I look at the intent of this, and we look at the entire process that has been in place for the last 4 years, I heard last evening that the Civilian Military Task Force has been in operation since 2006. That being the case, the concern and the established by the author of this amendment to get the commission, the Guam First Commission, operating and making sure that in fact they come together so that we have the collective minds working on this military buildup. You look at the Civilian Military Task Force that was established just by virtue of either an executive order by the chief executive to at least initiate the conversation amongst certain government agencies. Then you look at a proposal that was presented not too long ago, about a month and a half ago, by a federal official that said, incidentally, to try to accommodate the concerns for the military buildup, what we're going to do is we're going to create this body, advisory body, so that we can track the buildup and the construction activity so that it doesn't tremendously impact the quality of life of our people in terms of the infrastructure, the imposition on water, wastewater, power, as well as our roads. Mr. Speaker, I look at this and I say, here's an opportunity for the chief executive to be able to recognize that formalizing the process only validates the work of the commission, only validates the work of the entire community, because under this Guam First Commission, you would have representatives not only from the government agencies, you would have representatives from the business community, you would have mayor and vice mayor representatives on that same panel, and you would have members of this body on that same panel. Collectively, we need to share the information so that everyone understands the nature of this buildup and that we address certain components, whether it be the environment, whether it be the infrastructure buildup with the roads, whether it be the utilities, whether it deals directly with bringing in H2 workers to supplant our people from getting those jobs, or whether we're just talking about good quality of life, that some of these permanent jobs go to Guam residents first. I mean, that's how I envision the Guam First Commission being formed and being able to push and advocate for the issues here in Guam and as it relates to the federal government. And once you formalize that and you establish it, guess what? When representatives from that commission goes to Washington, D.C. collectively as a group, and they advocate for the interests of the people of Guam, they're going to listen. They're going to listen because it's a formal acceptance and a structure that has been put together by the legislative body that collectively includes appropriate representatives from the entire island community. That's what we're talking about here. I don't understand exactly what the major issues are. I mean, if in fact there's some major impediments in the existing law and implementing it and immediately convening the Guam First Commission, then we should be made aware of that so that we can move forward with a formalized structure so that it would address the good sponsor of this amendment, our colleagues' concerns, and most importantly, so that it can act collectively on behalf of the different minds in that room in advocating for the interests of the people of Guam. Because for policies, it comes before this body. It is our job, Mr. Speaker, to be able to enact policies and legislation that would ultimately benefit our people. But when we're looking at sharing, coming together of the minds, and being able to work together collectively as a community, that's one thing that we certainly need to continue to push towards. And I'm going to put this in perspective, Mr. Speaker, because the established timelines. Even though a month and a half ago, federal officials came in and they said, well, we're going to modify the timeline without any definitive formal statement coming out in black and white. They said, well, we're looking at modifying the timeline so it doesn't have a tremendous impact on the infrastructure and the people of Guam. That's the statement that was released. But in the same token, we're looking at a buildup that is going to consume anywhere from 12 to $15 billion of federal / U.S. / Japan financial resources in building up an infrastructure behind the gates. What we have asked as a community is that some of those funds be transplanted over or given to the government of Guam so that we in turn can build up our infrastructure so that it becomes a win-win situation. That is what we have requested, we have insisted with regards to this military buildup, and I believe that the composition of the membership of the Guam First Commission will do exactly that because it's a requirement. The land issue that you have always been advocating for, this issue on the POGAT, this issue about land condemnation, those are all part of the authorization and the mandate of the establishment of the Guam First Commission so that in fact it would address serious issues that would impact our community on the military buildup. I started off, Mr. Speaker, by questioning whether in fact this would be a showstopper on the part of the Chief Executive. But I believe that as I look at this even further, it sends a message. And the message is that there's a law in place unless it is proven that is unconstitutional or inorganic or legally insufficient, then it should be complied with. It should be implemented so that it ultimately carries out the objectives and the missions that was set forth for that Guam First Commission. So, Mr. Speaker, I was asked by the sponsor to consider my support for this with a little bit reservation just based on what I just shared with you. Because I certainly don't want anyone to say we've gone through this entire budgetary review, we've complied with, or your committee and OFB has worked closely with executive branch representatives to come up with a figure that is safe in terms of the initial presentation, not necessarily ultra-conservative, but it's within a safe zone, and that the allocation is supportive of the operations of the government. I would hate to see someone look at all those factors and say, because of this one particular provision, we're not able to proceed. Or I will veto this only because it would restrict my hands. Rather, look at the message, the underlying message here. This body had to override that provision when it was initially vetoed. So it's a statement that there's an importance, some sense of importance behind the establishment of the Guam First Commission. And to me, it's all boils down to the interests of the people of Guam and bringing those shared minds in the same forum so that in fact we can address some of the other issues that are affecting our island and our people. At the end of the day, not only do we want to see a government operate for the balance of, for the entire fiscal year 11, but we want to see, at least from my perspective, I would like to see not only the collaboration of all of these entities coming under the guise of the Guam First Commission, but most importantly, 5 years, 6 years down the line, I would like to have that sense of assurance that yes, land issues were addressed, cultural issues were addressed. Yes, in regards to funding, mechanisms for infrastructure as well as utilities and other components, education and healthcare, that those issues were addressed because of the efforts of this Guam First Commission and because they collectively went to Washington, D.C. and was successful in being able to bring some additional resources to our island. And that's really where I look at this moving forward, Mr. Speaker, and it provides strong teeth for the Commission to do its job. And I think that that's really the approach that we should be taking. So yes, to the sponsor, he's probably in a quandary back there and trying to figure out where's he going with this in terms of my position. I stated my reservation, but I believe he knows exactly where the votes are going to drop. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Hogan. Senator Palacios.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I read the veto message of the bill that what is now law, and I have to say that the message expressed there is not unreasonable. Nevertheless, I joined for the override, and because I feel comfortable with also, I view the bill as an alternative to the so-called Guam Commission, Joint Commission, or whatever they call it. But with this amendment, Mr. Speaker, I think this would result in beyond just convening the first meeting of the commission. This, I think, now would have the, I guess, the potential of engaging in a, I guess, in a block situation, block position, of which I'm not prepared really to see the outcome of. And two things can happen if this were to be included in the bill, and that is, like one said earlier, that it can veto the bill. But there's not so much problem there in that. I think the current law, the current Budget Act will continue as provided by law. So there's very little harm done other than perhaps ego here and there. But what if this goes through and then the governor just went ahead and ignored, and then the office of the governor is not funded because of this? Then I would feel that I am part of the cause that closed down the executive office from October 1st to December 31st, because that's the first quarter. And to me, that is extreme for what this amendment proposes to accomplish, which is actually to convene, which would be a good meeting, but now at the risk of it closing Adelup. That's actually my main concern, because the vetoing of this budget bill, other than we spend good hours here and intelligent presentation, and I'm ready to vote on this, and then only to come back vetoed, there will be a backup, of course, like I said earlier, but I really like to, I prefer if we don't get in, if I don't get involved, probably I'll say that. And maybe we can handle this later on a separate bill, for which then, you know, we can do that. But to close down Adelup because of the non-disbursement for the first quarter, which is actually what this mandates, is that I don't want to be responsible. I don't want to be part of that that cause, and that's my concern, Mr. Chairman. I want to express myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Palacios. Any other discussion on the bill, on the amendment? I'm going to call for just a 1-minute recess. Sure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the discussion and the discourse regarding the amendment that I'm offering at this time. I also appreciate you allowing us to take some pause here during the budget deliberations to kind of talk about what the consequences will be if the governor continues on this course to try to address this massive military buildup on his own through the Civilian Military Task Force, which he hasn't convened in years. Mr. Chairman, you know that since the 27th Guam Legislature, we've tried very hard to unite the collective leadership here on Guam. even before the decision of the federal government to relocate these military personnel from Okinawa to Guam, even before that decision was made, we said through the establishment of the Guam First Commission that we're going to get no other opportunity to address issues such as war reparations, Chamorro self-termination, political status issues could be resolved because Guam is going to be relevant, because Guam is going to play host to this military community, which we welcome with open arms, provided they create one community. You know, we're hearing all these commitments that are being made at the front end, but yet these commitments aren't being realized. And they're not being realized because our community is not united, because our leaders are not united. We're trying to have some semblance of a unity. We've been to DC a couple of times, and I don't know where the governor gets off thinking that to involve members of the legislature, we're just going to be a huge distraction. There was one delegation where we went with Speaker Wampat, Vice Speaker Cruz, Senator Calvo, and myself. We talked to the Environmental Protection Agency regarding this tertiary treatment issue. In this last trip, I was able to join Speaker Wampat, Senator Spaldon, Senator Munya Barnes, and we even talked to the Department of Transportation regarding this $50 million that's needed to upgrade the Port Authority of Guam. I mean, we go out there, we put our game face on, we put our people of Guam face on, and we do nothing but advocate and put Guam first. And when we have these kinds of approaches in coordination with Congresswoman Bordalio's office, we can see the benefits that have replicated itself over the years. But to the contrary, if they know that we're divided, they take advantage of us. And I believe, Mr. Chairman, that they've taken advantage of us in trying to justify that Paga has been identified for a firing range. They've taken advantage of us by saying that it was someone at the governor's office who said that Paga should be looked at. Now, if this Guam First Commission were convened, this statute requires that any communication regarding the Guam First, regarding the military buildup, has to come through the Guam First Commission, and the governor himself is the chairman of this commission. So you can never say that we're trying to water down or negate his authority. To the contrary, we've tried to surround him, to circle Guam, and just have him put Guam first. And so I understand the ramifications of what he might do to this budget if this amendment were in, and I understand the greater complexities with respect to the politics behind this whole budget adoption. He might find fault in another area. He didn't fund certain things originally. Those things are not funded now. He might use this amendment as a veto and then tell all these constituencies that, oh, that was a bad budget, I could never support it. But right now, we see a process where through the Special Accounting Services and the Special Economic Services, through BBMR and DOA and the Governor's Fiscal Policy Team, we see an acknowledgement of the revised revenue projections. And I commend your leadership, Mr. Chairman, in wanting to present a budget which reflects those revenue projections that have to be revised downward, because you crafted a budget. This legislature, through the adoption of this budget, have looked at the governor's allotment process to see where his priorities are in terms of a $540 million budget. So that was what was guided, that was what your committee was guided by. And so I don't want to muddy the water. In the beginning, I opened up my remarks by saying, so far, so good. And I don't want to be the one to, or this amendment, to be the one to trip us up. So at this time, I move to withdraw my amendment. I really thank you for the opportunity. But that was good, Senator Uggan.
Thank you very much,
Mr. Chairman.
Senator
Thank you. But let's not stop, and let's keep our resolve up to have the current administration convene this commission. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
My deep and sincere appreciation for your withdrawal. Thank you very much. On the motion to withdraw the amendment, no objections. The amendment's withdrawn. We now are back to the Chapter 2, Education, which starts on page 21.
Actually,
And
I even have one that's for education, but it's in Chapter 1, if I
okay, that's fine.
may proceed there. Mr. Chairman, there are several amendments that have been passed out. The first one I'd like to offer is a little longer one, and it's in Chapter 1, General Provision, which is on page 16. to make it easier for everybody, I actually will give you the page number. And it would start on for where it says C, excess available business privilege tax revenues. And the changes that I want to make here is on number 2, subsection 2 rather, where it says 30% for the education and retirement fund and the hospital, to delete those, to delete the lines 8 to 11. My understanding, and maybe you can provide further clarification, that is actually being addressed right now.
Yes, we actually are funding the payments on that.
Okay, so there's not there'd be no negative impact by actually having to delete then lines 8 to 11, and the is to add a new number 2, and that would be 40% of all excess collections identified in Chapter 1, Section 7E of this Act shall be appropriated for payment of principal and interest obligations pursuant to the Guam Federation of Teachers versus the Government of Guam et al. Superior Court Case Number SP 0009-07. What this court finding, Mr. Chairman, is the teacher furlough. And the longer, of course, we wait to pay this, the higher the amount would be. At one time, we were looking at about $2 million, and my understanding as of today that number now has gone up to over $4 million. So I'm requesting then that in part of the priorities that you have on page 16, that be now number 2 in place of the other retirement payments, and then for 3 and 4 would be to reduce both of those by 5%.
So that it just totals 100%.
Yes.
On the amendment, no objections? The amendment carries.
Thank you very much, Senator Mr. Chairman. The other is, if we can turn to page 30, and that would be at the end then of the section for DOE, the chapter for DOE, is a cost savings incentive. And I'd like to share that the superintendent of GDOE is encouraged to implement a cost savings plan to include, but not limited to, consolidation of programs and entities, maximizing on student-teacher ratios, and practicing energy conservation. If the superintendent is able to implement any cost savings within the GDOE less than its authorized appropriate level, the superintendent shall have that dollar value of savings available to be spent to support payment for prior year obligations and the purchase of supplies and materials. If the superintendent is able to reduce the annual utility consumption by at least 15% of their prior annual billing, measured each quarter for each utility type, the superintendent is authorized to have that dollar value of savings transferred from the utility pool to supplement and support payment for prior year obligations and the purchase of supplies and materials.
Okay, so this is not adding new money, this is adding flexibility.
Yes.
For those savings that may be possible.
Yes.
On the amendment, no objections? The amendment carries.
Thank you again very much, Mr. Chairman.
You have
Mr. Chairman, now on page 34, the amendment the amendment talks about the Guam Certification Office. I think that should be page 34.
Oh, Madam Speaker, did you want to do the other amendment?
Oh, which
in
one?
the DOE section?
Okay, wait, let me see.
Which is the transfer? Yeah.
Oh, which one?
I have a copy here, Ms. Madam Speaker? Oh, you don't have your copy. Okay, then Senator Barnes, you had that amendment we deferred on the other section until we got to the DOC? 30. We would just add a new section.
Do you have two copies of this one?
No. Oh, you have, I had recognized Senator Barnes. Senator Barnes.
Si Diyos Masi, Mr. Chair, and thank you for letting me come back to this. I have an amendment that was passed out since this morning, and again, it's to add section 14, is added to chapter 2, and this is how it would read. Section 14, the reappropriation of unexpended and unencumbered appropriations to the Department of Education, and it says the sum of $1,210,411 of the unexpended and unencumbered appropriation remaining as of August 1st, 2010 from the appropriations contained in Section 4 of Public Law 30-37 is hereby reappropriated to the Department of Education to the object category 230 in the base operations appropriation in subject in Chapter 2, Part 1, Section 1.
Okay. On the amendment, Senator Blas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't have any problem with the amendment as a whole. I do have concern, though, with regards to the utilization or the language that says remaining as of August 1, 2010. My concern there, Mr. Chair, is that it almost infers that my concern is that in reference to August 1st, 2010, it almost infers that any of the expenses that have occurred after that date, you know, that the encumbrance or the spend on that is no longer allowed. I know what the issue is here, is that as of that date, that was how much they had.
So maybe just strike out the
strike
date.
out the any reference to the date there, and just maybe
Just whatever's remaining.
whatever is remaining.
Okay.
Okay. I could say that as of August 1st, that's what
Or
it was
upon the
reflected.
enactment, upon the enactment.
And upon the enactment,
Of
right.
this act.
I'm just concerned that
Right.
they may take it
It
as
may have changed.
exactly.
Okay. All right.
The one point, and at one point, that's why I said I can see the reference to that at that date. That's how much they had.
Right.
I'm just concerned that after that date, can they read this to say that in September 18th of 2010, if they were to draw from this account, they can't do it anymore? Because all that money as of up to August 1st is going to be transferred over. So my whole concern is basically make sure this account is still open till up to the end of the fiscal year. Whatever is remaining and unencumbered in that balance, then be used in the next fiscal year.
Then maybe it's the amount of 2 million as of 2000 shall be of the unexpended is reappropriated to the Department of Education.
Or any amount that is in that appropriation, which as of August 1st reflect that it had this amount.
Okay.
I can see the reference to that amount, and,
Right.
and that's the amount they had at that date. My concern is that I didn't want that date to be a cutoff, and they couldn't access this amount for the rest of the fiscal year.
I understand what you're trying to say.
This is appropriation to the government.
I understand, I think your concern is what if that amount is not existing upon the enactment of this law? So,
how about if we just say, sir, the unexpended and unencumbered amounts from the appropriation contained in Section 4 of Public Law 30-37 is hereby reappropriated.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be fine. So take out the number and just
So
reference the.
my amendment would then, my amendment to the amendment would basically so that it reads the unexpended and unencumbered amounts
From the appropriations.
from the appropriations contained in Section 4 of Public Law 30-37 is hereby reappropriated to the Department of Education.
Okay, all right. On that amendment to the amendment, there's no objection. Yeah, okay. All right, as amended then? No objection?
No, yeah, and I, just point of information, I noticed that there were other amendments that were made similar to this, similar language, and that we
No,
may
but-
need to.
No,
may-
because we knew the amount there. There's 4 million left
Right.
in that amendment, so we're taking the 3.2 for sure.
Yes, but I think
And
that
then-
in earlier amendments that we
And then the
made
balance
earlier
would
in the
be-
day, we did make reference to amounts that were in those accounts as of August 1st, and we used that same language in other. If while we're going through, I'll go through the amendments that I have here, and I'll bring it to the chair's attention.
Yeah. No, it's the, yeah,
technical change to make that.
yeah. My concern is that if we don't put that amount, then the governor may decide to run in there and transfer the money before he signs the bill, you know? So that's why we wanted to put the. Yeah, yes, on purpose. So. No, no, because this is for part of their, it's not their, part of their obligation.
Can we take a 1 minute recess, Mr. Chair?
Okay. 1 minute.
So you can withdraw your motion. That's why I wanted to show you that. So withdraw your motion and I'll keep my amendment.
Yeah, back to DOE. So, okay, Senator? All right. Okay. Legislature's back in session. Senator Blas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the break, and I think that it helped to clarify my concern here, and I can see why it is necessary to have both the amount and the date.
Thank you.
And so therefore, I request to withdraw my amendment to the amendment.
All right. Thank you very much.
I'll keep the language as it says.
Yes, thank you very much. So on the amendment was presented by Senator Barnes, no objections. The amendment carries. We have the speaker.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. If I can take you to page 30, and well, it would have to be a different number again to
Yeah, just a
change
new
the
section.
Yes. And what is the budgetary transfer authority for the Guam Department of Education, and to add the new language after line 6, that the superintendent of GDOE shall not transfer any appropriation for increments and promotions and reclassifications as provided within Section 3 of Part 1 of Chapter 2 of this Act to supplement or support salaries. If a surplus in funding exists within the appropriations for increments and promotions and reclassifications, such amount may be used to support payment for prior year obligations. And so I guess that's very self-explanatory.
Yes. On the amendment by Speaker Wampat, no objections? This is the budgetary transfer authority for the Guam Department of Education. Will be to add a new section to Chapter 2, Part 1.
And then we'll work the numbers accordingly.
Yes, it'll be renumbered, a new section.
And it won't be 13 on the copy.
We'll make sure the clerk has a copy. Speaker Wampat, did you have one final amendment?
Thank you again. This is going to be on page 34, the amendment for the Guam Commission for Educator Certification. And the amendment is that all references to the Guam Commission for Educator Certification shall be changed to Guam Certification Office. That was passed by law, and so all reference to that commission should be corrected.
All right, so the amendment is that where it reads Guam Commission for Educator Certification will be changed to read Guam Certification Office.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And then
on the amendment, no objections?
Okay, and continuing on in that same section, then we should add, insert the words here that in providing administrative support to the Guam Commission for Educator Certification in accordance with, the law for the Guam Academy Charter School Council and for the Council on Post-Secondary Institution Certifications. And all these were individual separate legislations, and we're just putting all of them now under this correct name of the Guam Certification Office.
Speaker, do you have a copy of that amendment?
Yes. I'm sorry, I thought everybody got a copy.
I know I don't have that, is what I'm saying. Make sure that the clerk gets a copy of that, of course. I have a copy down here, but the clerk needs to make sure. Okay. No. All right. So on the amendment by the Speaker? No objections? The amendment carries.
Thank you very much. And on page 39.
No, this one. Any Speaker?
Page 39.
Page 39.
The other amendment, actually, it says to delete subsection B2 within section 3 of chapter 2, part 4.
Oh, the Counselor Corps.
Yes, because those were already deleted by law, and we're
Okay.
just making the corrections here.
All right. So the amendment is
To
delete subsection B2 within section 3 of chapter 2, part 4.
Part 4.
These
yes.
already been deleted by law.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's correct. The Guam Counselor Corps and Principal Corps.
That was,
And
was
that-
Public Law 30-73.
Right, okay. And that's all the way to line 3 of page 40?
Yes.
All right. On that amendment, no objections? The amendment carries.
And the last amendment is on page 43. And the first part of this is on section 15, where it says appropriation to the Guam Cancer Registry, is to delete that section.
Okay. So,
Page 43.
all right.
And then on the section 11, wait, I'll explain.
Yeah.
Because then in section 11, what this is the appropriation.
She's transferring the appropriation.
Yes.
Okay.
Because so what it is if you read there that the sum of $202,907 is appropriated from the Healthy Futures Fund to the Department of Public Health and Social Services to maintain the Guam Cancer Registry pursuant to Section 3201.1 of Title 10. The Department of Public Health and Social Services shall provide funding to the university for services, supplies, and or materials in executing the memorandum of agreement between the University of Guam and the Department of Public Health and Social Services regarding the collection of the data and the maintenance of the Guam Cancer Registry. Any funds pursuant to this section shall not be expended in fiscal year 2010, or not expended, I'm sorry, in 2010 shall revert to the Guam Cancer Trust. Mr. Chairman, there is currently a memorandum of understanding that I have here between Public Health and the University of Guam, and the University of Guam is actually receiving federal dollars, and it's listed right here that they have, in partnership with the University of Hawaii, has obtained federal grants, funds to establish a cancer research center in Guam on their campus for the above purposes. So what this would be is to transfer it to public health instead, but whatever other services or supplies and materials that they may need, then they will be able to provide that.
Yeah, basically the Guam Cancer Registry is housed at Public Health.
At Public Health,
instead
yes.
of UOG. And so that's why there was a provision in the increase in the tobacco tax that a portion goes to the Guam Cancer Registry. But instead of, and it said at UOG, but it actually housed at Guam Public Health. So under the amendment, no objections. The amendment, that should be fiscal year 2011, Madam Speaker.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Not-
2011, yes.
Not expended in fiscal year 2011. Yes, section 15 is stricken. Okay. So the amendment has passed. Speaker Wampat, any additional?
No, I think that's
All right.
it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Speaker Wampat. That concludes the discussion on Bill 439. Oh, Senator Spodon? Sure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I want to make this a general motion because in the public hearing for the department's budget, the Division of Chamorro Affairs have always been neglected, and they're actually going to end up with only one person, I think, by the end of this school year. And we have a full program in our schools from K to 12, but no personnel or supplies, materials to support them. And I would like to ask that in object classification 111, 230 and 240, that to go back to the request that we heard during the public hearing, and that then you subtract out the amount from these object categories, then to be able to set up a separate section just for the Chamorro studies within the Department of Education.
Okay. So an amendment would be to just basically break out the budget request for the Chamorro Studies program and give them a separate section in the bill with those object categories.
Yes.
And we will do that as a technical amendment in terms of making those reductions
Yes.
to that.
And when I sign the amendment of my co-sponsors are Senator Taitigui.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
thank you very
much. On that amendment, no objections. The amendment carries. That is the final amendment, and it is fitting that the final amendment continues the progress of this body in terms of recognizing and supporting our Chamorro studies program. We started this session with speaking in Chamorro, and Torit Mangwentusit pues mauling na ta rekognisa na importante sti ta na siguro na ma-rekognisa dan matungo na para ta supporti spesifikat i programan sa Chamorro Department and Departamento ng Edukasyon. So that concludes the discussion on Bill 439-30. At this time, I'd like to give an opportunity then for any member of the body who wishes to make any general comments on the bill itself. And then after those general comments, then we will entertain a motion to rise. I see Senator Palacios and then Senator Gutierrez.
Jesus Maxim, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, tanay experience antes ke panan fatusing kebiyahin na attendis di budget hearing na pag na hearing, it must all looks move, must fino, must organize, must competition, must foot mart, sinabi all look must maulik. Pues credit to Mr. Chairman ni Chechoy taw-taw mo, pag mismo direksyon mo sa atana na ta hutsumiste giun simana lo hutsagya gi antes na mas adokkoy tempo ja gono sukuna taiguya di putsi process lo siginoli no sina mas no tana tafta na ita ta conclude este no magusto sa sumauno do como uno gi gini po na grupo gi po na momento ni mamanene mo na sti da best sempita bota no ipai budget no lo again dangin often sekretumo ni te manus ti posib ma arreglamna da ma pakete na ne prosmove to sinang na fan managyam da cosa que sina penchegbi pareho na maulik chocho na puristi animo budget na i presentasyon ne taw mo mucho mas i gulo claro na sokko jan fitmi para isa protekko nesti sa utungo hafa sa bobota claro utungo hafa implication utungo mong isalapi ginin mamano jan tamano makakasta jan sufficiente na manihante jan control ane kisina taja dispedisyo isalapi into mas taja dispedisyo mas mahal na pesa talo premier experience ako ni imas mauling na budget hearing Jesus masi Mr. Chairman.
Senator Palacios. Senator Guthertz?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to take this moment to express appreciation to you and to your committee members and to the staff of your offices for such a smooth handling of the 2011 budget plan. This is your second year now to handle the budget responsibilities for the government of Guam on behalf of this legislature. And I've been very impressed with your efforts and the soundness of your presentations and the professionalism of your staff. I'm also very proud to see one of my former students sitting next to you. And we're very fortunate to be able to have, there's another one on the other side, to have University of Guam graduates working with your committee. It's a tribute to the university and to your astuteness to recognize their abilities. Mr. Chairman, I hope that our friends in the various departments and agencies of the government of Guam can appreciate how this legislature, through your leadership in the committee that you chair and your staff, have been able to ferret through the significant challenges that we expect for fiscal year 2011. We know, based on the projections, that we will not see a significant amount of new monies in 2011. And I think the legislature has taken a very prudent approach to the budget for next year. I also want to thank, Mr. Chairman, the staff of the Central Operations in the Guam Legislature for working closely with your committee and the legislature through this process over the last few days. It's been a very quick process because most of the work was completed in the committee and at the staff level for the 2011 fiscal year budget plan. And as I said, I hope this approach continues. It's very heartwarming and refreshing to see this process move forward with no rancor, no serious animosities in any of the discussions among the senators here. I think it's a tribute to the hard work that has been put into this effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and Jesus Masi, Senator Guthers. I have Senator Muñoz and then Senator Blas.
Mr. Chair, Dunkle na si Jesus Masi dyan i-officing Hamzu sa Mas Malik ki Estina Preponi. You know, I as hard as I can try speaking our native language, I have a sense of appreciation today, knowing that as we look at the bill as presented, over 100 pages, almost 200, if not 200 some pages, and the efficiency that you and your staff have taken to make this such a smooth transition for us to look at, having the tracking sessions that you guys have done with the agencies and with the stakeholders, with SAS, SES, and just being able to give a great presentation. I'm very, very pleased, appreciative. And the record time, I guess. I know that I heard in the history of the legislature, there was a record time of 10 or 20 minutes, but you know what? This, I guess, comes close. And just the hard work to you and your staff for doing an excellent job. Sizu Asmasi.
Thank you very much. Senator Blas, then Senator Taidavi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair, I want to thank you for actually the effort that you and your staff have been able to put this together. In preparation for this is the number of meetings that you had openly with SES and SAS for this to be able not only to get to the numbers and how the numbers were derived, and as far as the revenues and stuff. And that said, though, in a conversation that I had with you prior to the lunch break, is with regards to recognizing that in as late as last week, there was a downward departure in as far as what the revenues were going to be, And at that time, I do recall conversations with the administration on basically the spend plan, for lack of a better term. I guess my question is open to the panel and to you, Mr. Chair. Is this a reflection of any spend plan that was that was requested for by the administration?
We requested, upon the revision of the budget of the revenues, we asked for a new spending plan. We did not get one submitted to us. We had conversations and we informed them that we were working off the budget allotment plan for the reduced revenues, and we began working from that. And the administration's very much aware that we are working on that as the stated priorities, and we continue to cooperate in terms of working through this budget with the reduced revenues.
So there was a discussion with regards to.
Yes, they knew we were actually using the current budget priorities as outlined in the allocation of the allotment releases to the departments and agencies.
So is it, in very layman's terms, simple layman's terms, if there was a 3% reduction in the budget, then we just correspondingly just took 3% off of everybody?
No.
So how do we work this?
No, when we looked at the reserves, and then we looked at the request of the departments and agencies, and where we felt those requests were needed to be funded, for example, we did increase those agencies even beyond the 3% reserve. For example, like the Attorney General's office, the allocation for the Attorney General's office was below their current spending level. I mean, and we looked at their spending level versus what their budget was last year, and we knew we had to increase from their budget last year to meet the spending reserves, the spending which is above even what was budgeted, and we filled those positions because we knew that those were essential provisions. Some of the departments and agencies also, for example, like the Parks and Recreation, the administration had reserved certain amounts, but we knew that they were opening up the new pool, and so we searched for ways to fund that because we know that that's an expense that they're going to face, in providing recreational services to our community, and we increased that funding. So we started from that base, but based upon the budget presentations of the departments and agencies, some of them got additional money because we just know they needed it, and we had to fund them. And then some agencies that did not spend at what they were funded at, even below their reserves, we made sure that nobody's position was threatened in those, and that we funded what they were spending at. So that's the way the committee proceeded with developing the expenditure levels for the departments and agencies.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, Senator Tydegui.
Señor Gihilu Sijos Masi para todo Ichetsu Muzan, Lokui para Itotsu I Tautamu. Adonkalu Sijos Masi for providing the amendments, the ones for the Oasis Empowerment, Mr. Chairman, and most especially the amendment that was recently done with Department of Education, Chamorro Affairs, that will promote and protect the very essence of our culture, which is our language. As you know, Mr. Chair, this is my second round of budget hearings, not budget hearings, but the session for budget. And I would like to ask and be straight to the point, because last year we had only but 15 minutes to review the final budget in its entirety. I know it's not the draft EIS, but 200 pages is kind of difficult in that matter of time. So, Mr. Chair, I request that you at least provide us at least an hour and a half or 2 hours or half the day to review the budget before we go to vote on it. I think that was the only thing that I found that was not fair for us, and I hope you consider that. Okay, and other than that, adonk lucitus masi.
Thank you very much. All right. I would like to take this opportunity then to thank all of you for your participation and thoughts on the budget. I want to thank your cooperation of yourself and your staff over the last few months when we've had the hearings when we've had some questions in the different departments and agencies, and both yourself and your staff were able to respond to the request by the Office of Finance and Budget. I do want to say this, that there's one commission that I'm certainly glad that the governor decided to allow to convene, even though it was sponsored by Senator Roy Respicio, and that's the creation, of course, of the Special Economic Service and the Special Accounting Service. This was an initiative by Senator Respicio a couple of sessions ago. And, you know, the governor had to act on that, and he did. And that has really contributed to the smooth process of the development of the budget and the revenue projections. And the cooperation that we've been able to build on that is because the foundation's there for that. And maybe I'll ask him to consider the Guam First Commission, and he'll listen to me. But I do, like I said, I think that initiative by this body, sponsored by Senator Respicio, has gone a long ways towards ensuring this budget flows. I once again want to thank, of course, the staff of the Office of Finance and Budget and the staff of the Committee on Appropriations. We've put in many late hours, many nights to work through this, and of course all of you for participating during the months of budget hearings that we've had. I want to especially recognize Senator Toniada, who has beat me to the meetings sometimes. But he was there, and Senator Taitigwe and all of you, again, for participating in the project, and that's been in this process, and that's what we've been able to do. So I would like then to ask Senator Respicio to make a motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and Mr. Chairman. And thank you also for that remarks. It kind of underscores that when you have a process, the outcome takes care of itself. But it also underscores your leadership in the area of budget and finance, and what you've been able to do together with your Committee on Appropriations as well as the Office of Finance and Budget. So at this time, it's my honor, beyond my responsibility, Mr. Chairman, it's my honor then to move that we rise from the Committee of the Whole on the matter of Bill 439-30 as substituted by the Committee on Appropriations, Taxation, Banking, Insurance, Retirement, and Land, and further amended in the Committee of the Whole. This is the act, an act making appropriations for the operations of the executive, legislative, and judicial branches of the government of Guam for fiscal year ending September 30, 2011, making other appropriations and establishing miscellaneous and administrative provisions. I move that we rise from this Committee of the Whole with all the amendments made while in the Committee of the Whole be intact. And then I would leave it to you as the good chair to then move this bill to the voting file after we rise. So I make this motion at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Recommendation?
The obvious recommendation to pass.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Masi. Okay. The Committee of the Whole is in recess. Okay. The Committee of the Whole on Committee on Appropriations on the matter of the discussion of Bill 439-30 has concluded its deliberations on the bill, and the committee has risen and would like to report back to the body that the committee recommends that Bill 439-30 with all the amendments intact made in the Committee of the Whole be passed by this body with a recommendation to pass, and that the committee be then engrossed and placed in the third reading file for voting.
Any objection to the motion? There being no objection, so ordered. Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the House rules, I move that we revert back to motions.
Any objection?
Yeah.
Hearing none.
Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Natural Resources, to which I chair, gone through a very exhaustive process to try to put together those who had some concerns with the Environmental Protection Agency's submission of the pesticide regulations. It took this agency 3 years to bring all these concerns together, and our committee spent the last 90 days. Unfortunately, the timeline for this rules and regs is in order to be, if it were to be implemented through the AAA process, is August 15th, but the timeline for this act is not till October of next year. But notwithstanding that, my committee has issued a committee report, and it's Bill 441, and it's an act to repeal and adopt the new Title 22 Guam Administrative Rules and Regulations, Division 3, Chapter 15, and to amend 10 GCA Chapter 50 relative to Guam Environmental Protection Agency's pesticide regulations. I ask the indulgence of the body to have this placed at the top of the second reading file.
Is there an objection to the motion made by the Majority Leader? Hearing no objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In consultation with Speaker Wampad, I move that we recess until 3 p.m. tomorrow. That when we come back, can we maybe take us to the second reading file now? And that's when we'll recess. I move that we go to the second reading file. But we're not
On the
going to
motion.
discuss this today. Then I'm going to recess till 3, and then we come in at 3, spend 2 hours on these 2 bills, and then vote at 5. Would you be ready? 2? Okay. Whenever you guys want to. 2? Okay. But then we'll vote at 5. When we're ready. Okay.
You're recognized, Majority Leader.
Thank you. So, Mr. Speaker, now that we're in the second reading file, I move that we recess until 2 p.m. tomorrow. We take up the few items remaining in the second reading file, and the appropriation chairs informed us that the bill would be ready to be voted on as soon as we dispose of, I think there's 2 more bills on the second reading file, with a goal to vote no later than 5 p.m. tomorrow. So I move that we recess till 2 p.m. tomorrow.
Thank you. I know the Speaker wanted everybody to please review these Bill 441 so we can move tomorrow. And pursuant to Senator Titagui's request, as soon as the budget bill is ready, if we can all be called to come pick up a copy of it so that we can review it. All right? So
And
as
Mr.
early as we can do that, please, because I know everybody wants to review it before we vote. Yes, no. That's what I'm saying. There weren't that many amendments to be made, so engrossment we should be able to do by the first thing in the morning, I'm hoping.
And Mr. Speaker, I
don't think there were that many amendments, were there? How many? 39 as compared to the hundreds that we've done in the past. And most of them were prepared by the committee anyway, so it shouldn't be. All right.
Before we adjourn, I just want to advise the body, Mr. Speaker, that I have a copy of the cliff notes for Bill 441, which shows the changes that the committee is proposing to the draft that's submitted by EPA. So that would help us a lot.
Either that or email it to us.
Yeah. We'll get
okay.
it, yeah.
On the motion to recess until tomorrow afternoon at 2. No objection.